There's a complex web of biology, evolution, culture, psychology, and society that helps explain why, statistically and anecdotally, women often report more emotional suffering than men, and understanding that doesn't mean women are weaker, but that forces beyond individual control shape emotional experience in ways that tend to burden women more heavily. To begin, let's look at biology. Hormones like estrogen, progesterone, oxytocin, and cortisol interact in ways that make women's stress responses, mood fluctuations, and sensitivity to social cues different. Estrogen amplifies serotonin and dopamine systems in certain parts of the brain, meaning mood and reward systems can be more volatile. For example, premenstrual syndrome, PMS, and premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD, show how hormonal cycles can exacerbate anxiety, depression, and emotional reactivity, often month after month. Likewise, women are more likely to experience certain chronic pain conditions and mood disorders. Studies show that women are more sensitive to pain, are more vulnerable to fibromyalgia, migraines, rheumatoid arthritis, irritable bowel syndrome, all of which carry emotional burden. On the evolutionary side, women historically have borne more of the risk associated with childbearing, child-rearing, securing offspring survival, social cohesion, emotional labor. Evolution shaped women to be more attuned to social harmony because cooperation, nurture, alliance building, empathy were survival traits. If a mother could read emotional cues, care for the young, maintain social bonds in her tribe, the odds for her children increased. This means evolution favored emotional sensitivity in women. Social cognition studies show that women, on average, score higher on measures of empathy, ability to read facial expressions, emotional memory, and social cognition tasks. But being more sensitive means more exposure to emotional suffering. When social bonds break, rejection hurts more. When relationships are disrupted, betrayal, emotional loss, or isolation hit deeper. Biologically, women's neural circuitry often responds more strongly to social threat and emotional pain. Parts of the brain associated with emotion processing, amygdala, anterior cingulate cortex, show different activations in women than men under stress or emotional stimuli. And psychological research has reported that women are more likely to internalize distress. Internalization meaning turning negative experiences inward, resulting in anxiety, depression, self-blame, while men are more likely to externalize anger, substance use, isolation. Socialization plays a huge role too. From early childhood, girls are often encouraged or expected to be emotionally expressive, nurturing, caretaking, and to maintain relationships, while boys are often taught to suppress emotional vulnerability, boys don't cry, etc., or are punished, explicitly or implicitly, for showing too much emotion. Thus, women often develop more practiced emotional awareness, but also more burden. They not only feel their own pain, but are expected to feel others' pain too. The social load of emotional labor, keeping peace, remembering social details, caring for others' moods, falls more on women, adding to emotional strain. A study on the male-female ratio of depression, Tang and Zhang, 2022, found that women are about twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with depression, and that psychosocial factors, such as role conflict, caregiving burdens, social expectations, contribute significantly. Another source of pressure is society's stigma around mental health. While women might suffer more or report more, sometimes because they are more likely to seek help, to notice emotional suffering, to articulate it, men may underreport due to norms around masculinity, leading to data that shows less suffering, but perhaps more hidden suffering. But reporting doesn't reduce suffering. In fact, being aware but under-resourced in support, therapy, time, rest, compounds emotional distress. Consider anecdotal examples. A woman balancing work, caring for children or elderly parents, managing household tasks, social expectations. When any one area gets harder, job stress, illness, loss, the load cascades. There is less psychological buffer. Another example, teenage girls in modern contexts are experiencing high social media pressure, appearance, comparison, cyberbullying, all of which heighten anxiety, depression, body dissatisfaction. Research indicates adolescent girls are more likely to perceive social rejection compared to boys, and social rejection is a strong trigger of emotional distress. There are studies showing that emotional volatility, moment-to-moment differences in mood, is higher among women with children, separated or poor, and among young women. One UK study with 41,000 participants found that women without children report substantially greater emotional volatility than men, and that women with children also experience more frequent extreme emotional lows than other demographic groups. Moving into social reasons, structural inequalities, such as gender pay gap, discrimination, double burden of domestic plus professional work, fewer leadership roles, create ongoing stressors. For example, women often have less access to material power, face more skepticism or pressure in male-dominated workplaces, and carry societal expectations that intensify pressure to look a certain way, to behave kindly, to maintain emotional peace, to nurture relationships even when tired. These compounding stressors over time lead to what psychologists call allostatic load, the wear and tear on the body from chronic stress. Biologically, high allostatic load is linked with higher levels of cortisol, dysregulation of sleep, immune function weakening, susceptibility to illness, emotional burnout, and emotional suffering is not just psychological, but embodied. Evolutionary pressures also shaped women's lifespan. The health survival paradox, women often live longer but with more morbidity, shows that women tend to live more years in poor health or with emotional and physical illnesses. Emotional suffering is part of that greater morbidity. Also, on social roles, women are more often primary caregivers, children older relatives, which means more emotional exposure, fewer breaks, and often less recognition or support for the caregiving work. This creates burden and guilt. Intersectionality adds further layers. Women who are LGBTQ+, of color, disabled, or economically disadvantaged face additional social stress, discrimination, microaggressions, invisibility, enhancing emotional suffering. Another angle. Evolutionarily, periods of reproductive cycle, menstruation, pregnancy, postpartum menopause, involve large hormonal shifts, physical demands, vulnerability to mood disorders. For instance, postpartum depression affects a significant proportion of new mothers. Pregnancy loss or complications also provoke profound emotional trauma. These biological changes, combined with social expectation to be strong mothers, can lead women to hide suffering, which delays healing. Neurological studies show that social cognition, ability to understand others' emotions, is stronger on average in women, which means greater exposure to empathic distress. For example, seeing suffering in others activates emotional centers in the brain. Many women report feeling emotionally drained when supporting others, friends, family, even when their own needs are neglected. The emotional memory is also stronger. Women tend to recall emotional events with more vivid detail, especially negative events, which can prolong suffering. For example, flashbulb memory research shows women tend to have more vivid autobiographical emotional recall under certain circumstances. Furthermore, societal responses to emotional suffering often differ. Women may find judgments, too sensitive, emotional overreaction, or gender stereotypes complicate their ability to express or seek help. Though paradoxically they are more likely to access mental health resources than men, this discrepancy means emotional suffering can be amplified by shame, guilt, or feeling judged while simultaneously lacking adequate support. Another contributing factor is economic insecurity. Women globally are more likely to be in lower-paid jobs, part-time, or informal sectors. Economic pressure, lack of financial autonomy, combined with social responsibility at home, intensifies emotional stress. Also, sleep disturbance patterns differ. Women more often report insomnia, poor sleep quality. Sleep is critical for emotional regulation. Lack of sleep amplifies negative affect, reduces resilience. And when crises hit, loss, illness, social upheaval, women often absorb emotional burden for others, caretaking, emotional labor, even when their own grief is unacknowledged. For example, when a family member is sick, many tell of mothers or daughters taking emotional and logistical load silently, while others notice and weep. The internalization of that unspoken burden leads to chronic anxiety or depression. From evolutionary memory, early societies required women to be alert to threat to children, food scarcity, predators, group conflict. So selection may have favored heightened threat detection, sensitivity to social exclusion, and vigilance. These traits, which once were adaptive, become emotional liabilities in modern, hyper-connected, fast-paced, media-saturated world where threat cues are everywhere: news, social media, interpersonal conflict. In addition, in studies of emotional reactivity to stimuli, women show greater neural responses to negative images, social rejection, or interpersonal stress. And in gendered studies of pain perception, women often report more severe pain and more emotional impact from pain, both acute and chronic. Also, gender differences in social support networks matter. Research shows women derive more emotional benefit from family and friend support. When these supports fail, the emotional fallout is higher. A study reported that women showed lower symptoms of depression and anxiety when perceiving strong social support provided by family/friends, more than men did. On the other hand, men often rely more on work-related or structural roles for their emotional grounding. When those are threatened, job loss, unemployment, emotional suffering arises. But often men have fewer outlets for emotional expression, leading to suppressed or externalized suffering, which may manifest in higher rates of completed suicide, though lower rates of reported depression, complicating the picture. Beyond biology and psychology, cultural expectations amplify suffering. In many cultures, women are expected to be the primary housekeepers of emotional comfort, others' feelings, children's needs, social harmony, while experiencing the same external pressures without equitable recognition or rest. Being expected to hold it together produces guilt, self-criticism, burnout, and emotional exhaustion. Anecdotally, I know a woman, let's call her Maya, who after working a full day in a demanding job, comes home to prepare dinner, tend to child's homework, check on aging parent, support partner emotionally, all while scrolling social news feeling anxious about global events. Even when exhausted, she feels she cannot say no, because culture and family expect her to maintain harmony. She lies awake many nights ruminating on all the ways she hasn't done enough, comparing herself to Instagram ideals, and that internal self-critic never lets her rest. Scientific meta-analyses confirm many of these pressures. In studies of adolescent mental health, girls are much more likely to report anxiety, depression, self-harm behaviors. In global burden studies, depression and anxiety disorders are significantly more prevalent in women. Yet paradoxically, women often have higher life expectancy but also higher morbidity, the female health survival paradox, meaning women suffer more health issues, pain, emotional suffering over a longer span of life. Towards solutions, awareness, destigmatization, equity in emotional labor, better mental health care, hormonal health awareness, workplace policies supporting rest and care, shifting cultural narratives of strength so that vulnerability is allowed for everyone, encouraging emotional regulation, psychological flexibility, self-compassion, creating social structures that support caretakers, equitable sharing of domestic and emotional work, teaching children emotional literacy, boundaries, how to ask for help, designing policy to recognize caregiving labor and mental health as public work, research better attuned to sex differences, not in stereotype but in lived experience, so that diagnosis and treatment adapt to women's unique stressors, because suffering more does not have to mean suffering forever, and because recognizing and honoring the depth of women's emotional experience can lead to greater healing, more balanced societies, healthier emotional ecosystems where everyone, women and men, can live with more emotional safety, authenticity, and peace.